it's your girl Amanda, and we are back with another episode of Mandy's Entertainment Reviews. So for this episode, we are doing a follow-up of BMF season premiere prediction. So in this episode, I will go over my conclusions and as well as my thoughts of this overall season. So this season, it started in June of 2025. It concluded in August of 2025. My full season thoughts was I didn't really like it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really like it. Let's just say that. Mainly because there were a lot of cliffhangers and a lot of characters disappearing without explanation. So, for example, Pastor Coleman, who was Clifton Powell's character, when Meech's family came to Atlanta, we only saw him for like one episode, and then he just kind of disappeared. Like no follow up, no story, nothing. Not even the other characters mentioned him. So I didn't really like that. So what I'll do is I will go over the conclusions and then I'll go over my final reviews. I did put in some characters that didn't really have much or wasn't even there. I did put in Detective Jen, the detective from Detroit, but she wasn't in this season, so I had to cross her out. But what I also did was I just made a list of characters that I thought just were really important to me. Everyone else had smaller roles, and it would be just like a waste of time if I just like mention them and then say, oh, small role and blah, blah, blah. So we'll start with Meech. So as I said, the predictions that he'll go into the music business, he'll have a beef with T, and then he'll sell drugs, blah, blah, blah. So after watching this season, I learned that Meech did indeed go into the music business, where he had like this beef with Trell over Purdy, and we'll go over who Purdy is in a minute. He broke up with Angel, and he ended up getting with Ashley, who actually portrays Lil Meech's mom. He was dealing with the Federales, which is the kind of the people down in I think Mexico. And he had beef with Terry, as I predicted, but he also had beef with B. Mickey. Now I was watching this season, and I just sitting here wondering, because everything was like so action movie like. Did he really like live that part where he was shooting at people in Mexico with machine guns in the back of a Jeep? Like that's kind of exaggerated in my opinion. The beef with B. Mickey. He was arrested for murder. Now that really did happen. I have a book. Well, I don't have like the physical book. I have like the Kindle version. It's a BMF book. It's by Mara Shalhoub, and she did cover how Meech was arrested for being involved in the murder of Anthony Wolf, who is the old bodyguard to Diddy. He was killed in Atlanta in a parking lot at a nightclub or whatever. So that fight at the end of this season finale, that was based off actual events, but I just didn't like how it was like portrayed. Also in the end, he did buy the infamous White House. That's where a lot of the BMF activity took place. And lastly, the fight at Trell's party, which is based off, again, the connection to the murder that quote unquote murder he was involved with at the nightclub back in like 2004. So that's what happened with Meech. I was kind of close with my predictions, but again, it wasn't a great season, so I think this is kind of going to be like a dry video or whatever. But so next we had T. I did say that T would go against Meech's plans to be in the music business, and he'll be unhappy with the drug dealing. I was way off. So T had a gambling addiction. It was so bad that he made his pregnant sister, which we'll get into that in a minute, travel with money so he can like cover his butt. He did end up getting back with Markeisha towards the end. Like in the beginning, he was like kind of like curving her like, nah, Markeisha, nah. But towards the end, they did end up getting back together. He had a beef with Meech over his loyalty in Mexico, and also B. Mickey, which we'll get into B. Mickey in a minute. He did cut off Meech at the end, which is basically true because in real life they didn't really speak for years after everything went down. And also he bought a house in California with Markeisha, which is also kind of true because in the book Mara Shalhoub, she wrote about how Tolisa, I think her real name is, she had houses in he had houses in like California and St. Louis and stuff. His restaurant was shot up, and also he got fat. Now, again, the restaurant shot up was kind of dramatized, if that's a word. But him getting fat, that is kind of true. And I just didn't like how they had Da Vinci in like a fat suit. Now, Southwest T is a bigger guy in real life, but just if you're gonna like wear a fat suit or just portray like an overweight character, just make it more believable and not something that people would make fun of. All right, so we're moving on to Charles Flannery. Charles is the father of Meech and T. So for Charles, I said that he'll go on the road, but will have to quit for whatever reason, and he might get back with Lucille. So I was way off. So what happened with Charles is that he something happened with the tour. He had to get off tour and beg for his job at the plant back. He ended up injuring his hand. I think one of the new hires accidentally dropped something on his hand, so he injured his hand at work. Because he could not work, he could not tour, he could not play any type of instruments. He had depression to a point where I guess he had like suicide ideation, if I use that term right. So he had like a depressive episode where he said he had a gun somewhere and basically he was going to use it. And at the end he went to Atlanta with Meech to fix up his house and ended up staying there. So at the end, at the funeral scene, which we'll get into in a minute, Charles and Lucille was having a moment, and Charles basically told Lucille, hey, I'm going to Atlanta full time. And Lucille was sitting in the house by herself. So that's what happened with Charles Flannery. Markeisha. So Markeisha, I said that she'll snake T and be controlled by Boom, which did kind of happen. She was actually playing both T and Boom in the beginning, but she ended up going into business with Terry, so she basically chose Terry's side. And Boom wasn't liking that, so he basically tried to kill her in a car accident. And in the end, she ended up moving to California to be with Terry. Now, also, I want to put in my notes that Markeisha overstepped her boundaries, too, by showing up to Nicole's baby shower. And I never understood that. And T was like, Markeisha is family. Nobody really likes Markeisha, so I don't think she should have been considered family. That's just my opinion. All right, so next character we have is LaWanda. LaWanda is the child's mother to Southwest T. Now, LaWanda normally had like a bigger role in the past seasons, but she did have kind of a small role, but I like the role she played of support for Nicole during her pregnancy. And then she was kind of a shoulder to lean on for T when he really wasn't, dealing with Markeisha. And also, like, just being a friend. She went and checked on... Now, here's the crazy thing. The baby mama went to go check on the girlfriend that nobody liked in the hospital when she had her accident, Markeisha. So I guess, like, LaWanda was, like, a true friend indeed to Nicole as well as T. And then in the end, LaWanda moved on with another man. She started dating this guy named DeMarcus, played by... I don't know his name very good. Tyler somebody. And I guess people knew who he was, so he is a big actor, but for like a small role. I didn't understand that, and I didn't like that. So that's what was up with LaWanda's small role. She didn't really make a lot of appearances in this season like she did before, but she was a friend. The next character is Detective Bryant. Detective Bryant, I predicted that he would be battling mental illness, but he'll still go after the Flannery brothers. He basically did that, but he ended up moving to Atlanta. So I guess that relationship I predicted with Detective Jen didn't happen because he moved to Atlanta to work for the feds there. He busted T in the beginning of the season where everyone was older. It was probably like in the 2000s. He was there to bust T, and then also basically he worked through the season to get to the Flannery brothers. It was a lot of twists and turns, but he worked the entire season trying to get to them. And then lastly, in the season finale, or series finale, I should say, he was the one that killed B. Mickey. So that was Detective Brian. Now, B. Mickey came back after missing a season. So I predicted that he'll be spending the season trying to rebuild with Meech and Terry, and probably will like raise hell against him if it doesn't work. Well, I guess I was kind of off. He did end up coming back. Turns out he had a wife and a kid who had an illness. I guess basically I should say he moved on because if you know he was in love with Kato and she was pregnant by him, but he ended up killing her in like season 1. The child had an illness, had to have a very expensive surgery, and he basically did anything, well, quote unquote, he did anything to get the surgery paid for. So he worked with T. He worked with T, and then he also asked money from the pastor Lucille's church, and he got the money that way. Let's see. And then it turns out that really B. Mickey was playing the game. He was working with Lamar, and because of that, he ended up betraying Lamar. Lamar ended up kidnapping his wife and kid, and you know the whole season down the line in the series finale where he was killed. So he was the traitor. He was a bad traitor. So I was way off of his prediction for B. Mickey. The next character is Lamar. So my prediction was that he'll be shot, beat up, back on drugs, and he just won't die. Well, Lamar was in rehab. It started this season with him leaving rehab. And he got out and worked with B. Mickey, I guess, to get back with T and Meech. When Lamar first got out of jail, or not jail, rehab, he went to go see his cousin Alvin. If you guys know, his cousin Alvin is played by Donnell Rawlings, who is the person who works at like the morgue. He killed his cousin Alvin in the morgue. He put him in the crematory. That was insane. And then he ended up, kidnapping B. Mickey's wife and child to get back at B. Mickey. And I don't know, he somehow hypnotized B. Mickey's wife or baby mama to go be with him and be a happy family. Obviously, it didn't work because he was killed by the Flannery brothers. I think he was killed by the Flannery brothers, or I think he was killed by the Flannery brothers or Detective Bryant. I put a note. No, Detective Bryant killed B. Mickey, so Lamar was killed by the Flannery brothers. Okay, yes, so he was killed, so he did end up dying, so I was way off with my predictions. Next character is Lucille Flannery. My predictions with Lucille was that she would be involved in the church with some controversy to try to get back with Charles. So no, I was way off. So Lucille was hell this season, like for real. She was crazy. People didn't like her. Like the actress who played Lucille was like low-key getting attacked in her comments. I'm sure she didn't mind it, but she was hell this season. Okay, so when Nicole revealed she was pregnant, they were at the wedding to B. Mickey and his wife. And she basically told Nicole, too bad you won't be wearing, white to your wedding. Just basically like shaming her and condemning her or whatever. So as time went on, Nicole's pregnancy went on. T gave Nicole, I think, $3,000 for the baby or education or whatever. And Lucille stole that money, and she bought groceries. And when Nicole tried to confront her mother about it, Lucille was like, be grateful. We have groceries in the house, and yada yada yada. So she stole that money, and once the baby was born, um, her and Charles kind of was like, yeah, this baby definitely isn't Breeze's. It's Worm's. And they just kept looking at each other like, that ain't that baby. She's like, it's a Breeze, it's a Worm, it's a somebody. I couldn't take her. And lastly, because we all know that Lucille became a pastor in like the third season, she left the church because she was just tired of the church board just disrespecting what T and Meech were doing, and they were just basically questioning her and stuff. So she just couldn't take it. So in the series finale, she walked out. And her and Charles did not get back together. Charles left and went back to Atlanta. So Lucille ended up being alone in the house, because we're going to move on to Nicole. Nicole, I just basically said she is going to have an eventful summer before college, and boy did she. So she got a car for her graduation gift. She graduated high school in the first episode of the final series, I should say. So she get a car, right? And the car is stolen. So Nicole has some legal issues and all that stuff. But when she had the car in the back seat, she was messing around with Breeze, right? All right. So gets arrested, car stolen, Breeze, legal actions, blah, blah, blah. So Breeze was away in school, and Breeze went to Clark Atlanta early, left Nicole behind, and she started messing with Worm, who is a member of BMF. When you mess around, it takes two to tango, you get pregnant, right? So she told Breeze at the wedding that she was pregnant, and, Breeze assumed responsibility, blah, blah, blah. And, yeah, this season she beefed with her mother because her mother was, them robes. If you know, them robes. But then the beef kind of died down when she went into labor and her water broke and she was scared. But once the baby was born at the hospital, Nicole decided that she was going to move out with Breeze. And they got Section 8, and Breeze went to go work at the Ford plant. So she was arrested for the stolen vehicle. She had a scholarship to Robert Morris, which is in Atlanta, but she decided to defer her schooling to raise her baby. She had to travel to take care of T's gambling habit. But I liked the part in the where she was in Atlanta. I don't know if she was there for the second time or the first time, where she was talking to Meech and she decided to name her baby after Demetrius. And T was kind of in her feelings, which was okay. Like, it happens, but yeah, T was in his feelings. But Nicole really had an eventful season. In real life, Nicole Flannery has 2 sons. I think they're by the same men. I don't know. But she does in real life have 2 sons. So I guess we watched her first son be born, and then her second son came maybe a couple years later. So Boom is Marquisha's husband. My prediction is that he might be released from prison and will come after Marquisha. I was not far off. He tried to kill Marquisha in a car accident. After he got out of jail, he gave Marquisha hell after he found out she was playing both sides. So that was Boom's character throughout the whole time. He did end up, getting into it with T, because T obviously loves Marquisha. So I wasn't too far off with Boom. Cousin Alvin, I assumed he was going to be alive throughout the season. He'll try to cover up Lamar's wrongdoings until he gets caught. I was assuming by the police. So, nope, I was wrong. Cousin Alvin had a small role. He was on the screen for like 10 minutes. He was thrown in the cremator by Lamar as he was trying to help him. So, I was so wrong for that. Loco. Loco, I thought was going to come to Detroit or Atlanta to haunt the Flannery brothers in a way like they had a beef. But unfortunately, he was killed in a car explosion, but during his time on screen, he was really there for T and Meech during their days in Mexico. But he did kind of get on them about trusting a little kid, you know, because they were in the middle of like a drug situation. So when a kid came in and T saw this innocent kid, but, you know, Loco was like, no, don't trust him, don't trust him. So yeah, but there was a scene. Loco was supposed to come to, I think, Miami or something, and he said, "Yeah, I'm coming." And then he gets in the car and kablam, Loco was dead. So I was wrong for that assumption too. Purdy. So Purdy was an R&B singer. I don't know if I covered Purdy in the Assumption video, but Purdy, she was a beautiful R&B singer, and she also rapped. And I assumed that she was going to date Meech in order to get to the top and maybe have connections in the drug game. So I was right about the drug game. Purdy was more like a friend to Meech in a way. Purdy had a cocaine addiction. During her time with Trell, which was most of the season, she was controlled by him because Trell's like the CEO of the record label or whatever. And then Purdy ended up overdosing once. She got better. She got clean. But then she got some mysterious cocaine and she took it and she died of a cocaine overdose. And what I think when I saw that is that cocaine was probably had fentanyl or some sort of deadly drug in it that took her out. So she did not make the whole season like I assumed. Let's see. Aisha, who is B. Mickey's wife, I assumed that she was going to have an affair with Charles. Why did I assume that she was going to have an affair with Charles? Because I remember watching a scene where she was basically smiling at him. So I was like, okay, there's going to be some sort of affair between them two. But no. So Aisha was B. Mickey's wife, biggest supporter when it was revealed he was playing the Flannerys. So, but at the same time, you know, she, I guess in a way, was grateful that her daughter got the surgery she needed. So, of course, she supported him when he was playing the Flannerys. She was actually kidnapped by Lamar with her daughter. Lamar had a hearse. Lamar took the hearse from his cousin's morgue where he worked at after he burned him, and she kidnapped the child and Aisha, and they drove around, and yeah, but luckily Lamar didn't hurt her or the child, and she was trying to go be with Lamar after B. Mickey was killed, which I didn't understand that, because she tried to side with him before he was killed. And when B. Mickey died, as the wife, you are responsible for taking care of a husband's or spouse's funeral arrangements and all that stuff. Well, after B. Mickey was killed, Aisha called the Flannerys, Charles and Lucille, and basically said, I give up all the rights to my husband's body. You take care of everything. And that's when the funeral with DMX music playing in the background came about. And Lucille, I didn't mention this with B. Mickey's character, but she did the funeral, and Meech and Terry paid for the funeral, which was crazy. Like, oh, you hated this guy for him turning your back on you guys, but you paid for his funeral. I didn't understand that either. But yeah, Aisha gave all the rights to Big Mickey's body to Lucille and Charles. Like I said in the beginning, Pastor Coleman, I really did see a lot of potential for Pastor Coleman. I thought he was going to have a affair with Lucille while she was in Atlanta with Meech and Nicole, but turns out he was a small character. We never heard from him ever again after that episode. So moving on, Breeze, who is the baby daddy to Nicole. I assumed was going to break Nicole's heart, and it would be a big blow up, especially because she was pregnant. Now, Breeze was actually cheating on Nicole in Atlanta. I was not far off from that, but he became a father through uncertainty. So we still don't know if that's really Nicole's baby daddy on BMF. But he ended up becoming a father, being responsible. He went to work at Pepsi. I'm sorry, he didn't go to the Ford plant, as I said before. He went to work at Pepsi and moved in with Nicole and the baby on Section 8. So he took responsibility. Hoop, he has some animosity towards T, might turn on him. That was my prediction. He was working with B, Mickey, and T on behalf of T, and he was there when B, Mickey, and Lamar was killed. So I didn't really pay a lot of attention to Hoop because he had a small role. Worm. So when I assumed when Worm started talking to Nicole, he'll probably try to kidnap her after meeting her at T's restaurant. But turns out Worm was just Nicole's side dude. He had an affair with Nicole, and then a lot of people thought it was his baby. And at the end, when Nicole was holding her baby, she looked at Worm and said, "Don't worry, it's not your baby." And Worm was like, "It wouldn't be bad if it was." So I guess what he was trying to say was like, you wouldn't be, living in Section 8 and, your boyfriend wouldn't be working at Pepsi, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's what he meant. CC was a lady that Guy Charles, I'm trying to say, was dating after Lucille. My assumption with CC was that Lucille would become jealous and would try to get back together with Charles. But when Charles came to Lucille and said, Lucille, I want to date somebody, she basically said, "You're a free man." What ended up happening with CC was that she, as it always does in TV shows, she ended up admitting she's married, and Charles ended up fighting her ex-husband. So that was a short-lived storyline for Charles and CC. Trell was an executive. Oh, well, let me see if I had a Trell. Did I have an assumption for Trell? I didn't have an assumption for Trell. Crazy. Trell was what I thought he was. He was an executive from hell. He exposed Purdy's drug use. And I still have this theory that he probably gave her Fetty, and that's how she died. And he ended up getting beat up by Meech in the season finale. Jay Pusha, I always thought he was doing some sus stuff. He was killed because he was caught up in the wrong crowd. Lazuli, I had an assumption for him. He was going to snitch to save himself and his grandmother. He was arrested and taunted by Brian, and he was found dead and shot in the park. Angel was Meech's girlfriend. I just thought she was going to be like his, by his side and all that stuff. She wanted to spend the rest of her life with Meech, but, Meech didn't really reciprocate that. And she left. She told Meech, you could find yourself a party girl, I'm out. But in the series finale, she tried to get back with him, but it failed because he was with Ashley. And Ashley, I thought, it was announced that, Ashley was a nurse. She was probably going to be the BMF's nurse because, BMF was such a huge conglomerate. It needed its own everything. So probably it needed its own healthcare division or something. And Ashley was going to be like the nurse or something. But she ended up becoming Meech's girlfriend, who is in real life was portraying Lil Meech's mom, and I think her name is Latara. So Ashley became Meech's girlfriend and got pregnant by him with a son, which was, crazy. I think the same scene I was talking about with Meech and I think it was Nicole. And Meech was going on about, he said, one day I'm going to have a son and I'll name him Demetrius. So that's what really happened, that it was portrayed that he met Lil Meech's mom and she got pregnant by him. So those were my predictions. Again, it's not all the characters in there because some of those characters I did right before had a small role and I just didn't want to waste time. So I'm going to close with this. I do give this season a 3.5 out of 5 stars, only because it did keep me engaged, but some of that stuff I just really did not believe. I did like the soundtrack, a lot of 90s music, Outkast, a lot of South music that I grew up listening to. And it's always a good thing when I listen to the music I recognize. Um, there was a lot more modern fashions because we are kind of bringing back the 90s style in 2025. So I did like the fashions. They wore Peli Peli, they wore Fubu, all that stuff. But what I disliked, I'm sorry, was that this was very rushed. Because obviously, like when you look at Nicole's pregnancy, how did she go from like just finding out she's pregnant to like 5 months in like 2 episodes? So it was very rushed. A lot of unanswered questions. So this is the series finale. 50 Cent said there's no more BMF, so we probably won't see Big Meech's like actual good years in like the 2000s when he was doing music and all that stuff. Um, and yeah, it just was a rush series finale, rush final season. And oh, also, what year was what? Like, what year was Nicole's son born? What year was this happening? What year was that happening? It didn't really specify, you know? So we just had to assume it was somehow in the 90s. So yeah, I didn't really like this season. The show is over. So I don't know if it'll come back in a different light or a different season. I know they're doing like a documentary, so it'll kind of answer the questions, but I just didn't like the fact that it just left us like hanging and not answering our questions. But yeah, that is the end of another episode of Mandy's Entertainment Reviews. If you are new to my channel, if you're just discovering this video, you could like, share, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And stay tuned for more. Peace.